Welcome to my channel. My name is Elodie from Elodie's Crafts and Creations. As you can see, I haven't finished this journal yet. I still want to do some things on the cover, and I am really sorry, but I wasn't able to do a proper tutorial on how I made these pages, and the simple reason is that it was a trial. It was my first time doing something like this, and I had no idea if it would work out, if it would be even showable. So I decided not to take videos of me doing it, and it's honestly a lot of work, a lot of layers, and it might not be finished yet. I'm not sure, I still have to think about it. But I did think that for today's video I could show you the process while we make some tags for this journal. So my idea, exactly like in the journal, we're going to cover up something that exists. For the journal I used some old vintage pages, which is a bad idea because they ripped a lot, and I would definitely, if I had to do it again, and I will, use some normal paper and then just cover it up completely. So I've got lots of different tags from, I don't know, stuff that you buy sometimes, and this is from food stuff. And I think there's sometimes you have some really quite interesting stuff, and I thought, you know, we could use it. So we've got all these different bits and pieces, and as I mentioned, the first step is really to cover them up and think about what we want to do with this. I think I'm gonna get it up here. And have two. Alright, so to cover these up, I'm going to use some background images. This is from a magazine, and these I have printed out, and this is from a magazine as well. And I also have some book pages that I like to use here. And for this I'm going to use either matte medium or just simple PVA glue that I need to fill in. And you'll see I like to put a little bit of water so that it's a little bit runnier. That should do it. And I am using this glass chopping board just so it's easier to clean up. Okay, so let's just start, and I really love this image. I would love to put it on a bigger. So right now I'm just cutting off bits and pieces. I'm just gonna put them up on our cards, and it's added. This is the best, honestly. I love book pages, they really add a lot. Alright, let's just start. And don't worry about writing spaces, we can add those as we go. So how are you guys today? Have you been doing any crazy crafting? Do you have any crazy plans you're not sure about that you would like to discuss or share? I often have crazy plans, and I do share them with you guys, and it really helps me figure out if I should do them or not. So don't hesitate. Discussions are always welcome. What I'm doing here is literally I'm just putting bits and pieces a bit everywhere. Ooh, and I wanted to do something here. So that's gonna be a bit difficult. I would love to put something in the window. But I don't know how, because I don't have something that cuts open like this. I'm going to put a little vellum paper with plant or green shades. Yeah, this should be quite good. So let's just cut it off. And I'm going to glue this with a roll-on glue so that it doesn't, bubble up. Oh, and before doing that, I wanted to do a little stamping. I do a little butterfly. Okay, I'm using an embossing ink pad. I'm going to do brown. And this is a vintage photo embossing glaze from Ranger, Tim Holtz. And now I'm going to use a heat gun. And we're going to place this. There. And I'm gonna have to cut off pieces. It's lucky I kept the second one, just to make sure that, you can cut it up here. The reason I use the glaze is because if I did a stamp with normal ink, it wouldn't stay on, it wouldn't dry as well. And since I'm doing this live, it wouldn't have been possible to just show you everything I want to show you. If you leave maybe like a whole night, it is definitely possible to stamp on transparent tracing paper, but I would definitely recommend that you leave it at least a few hours. If not, just do them before going to bed. That's my recommendation anyways. So the idea here is to do a patchwork with images and book pages. You don't have to just fill everything that's underneath. Just keep in mind that the paint can be transparent, so try to hide all the areas that are really bright, for example, like this little bit here. Oh, and I do have a question. For people who use this matte medium to glue stuff, like, why do you do that? Is that better than PVA glue? Because PVA glue is much cheaper. To me, I feel it glues better. I did have to go back and re-glue stuff from when I used matte medium. So I don't really understand. I do believe it doesn't stick as much to the paintbrush, so sometimes it's easier to glue with matte medium, but since it doesn't glue so well, well, I just don't get it. So if you have any ideas, I would love to know. Alright, so that's one done. We do have a bit of this here. There. Let's just hide it. There. One done. A few more to go. Two done. Well, let's just add a bit more here. Next, let's put a bit of color on this one. Done. Oh, let's do the round one too. Really like this tiny round one. Since it's round and I want to keep the round shape, whenever I do one layer, I need to make sure that I cut off the excess. Okay. Now I'm just going to cut off the edges. And this one is all torn, so I'm just gonna keep it torn because my book, my junk journal, as you've noticed, all the pages are pretty torn. So it doesn't really bother me. And now that all our tags are covered, we're going to homogenize this patchwork. To do that, so we're going to blend each piece of paper into the other so it looks like one beautiful background. For that, you can use gesso or gesso. I don't know how to pronounce that. And also either your fingers or a paintbrush. I personally really like to use a soft paintbrush to do this. So what we're going to do is very simply paint on all the very straight or raw edges, just cover any, links between each paper that you put. Don't hesitate to go over some of your images. The paint is usually pretty transparent and the image will show a bit underneath. So it's quite nice. As I just mentioned, the paint is often transparent, so you might need to do a few layers. It really depends on the quality of the paint that you use. It's absolutely not a problem. I have very, very cheap acrylics and, well, I think it looks fine. It just takes a little bit longer to dry and to do the layers. Once everything is dry, you can go over a few times if you need to make sure you get whatever you want. And I don't have a specific idea in my head at this point. I'm just covering up some places. Others are going to be a bit more white just because, I don't know, I feel like it. The next step is to add a little bit of texture. I'm not sure you will see, but right here I've added some tissue paper. And it's as simple as that. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to glue some tissue paper onto some of these cards. It doesn't have to be all of them, and it might be used, to hide some really straight edges, for example, or some defects that you weren't able to remove with the paint. And for this I'm using liquid matte medium here. So I'm just gonna do that. Just crumble it. Just put it on. And then just press it and then use the matte medium. And you need to make sure there are no bubbles. And you don't have to put a lot either. It can be just a tiny little bit. Just make sure that you remove all the bubbles by pushing them outwards. And then we can just glue these on the other side. Next, the idea is to have a focal point. So what we're going to do for this, and you can do it before you put on the little cloth here, we're going to put a focal point. And it doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be, you know, ideal, because you're really going to change this all up after with watercolors, and that's gonna be the next step. So I'm just gonna glue, and as usual, just make sure it's really well glued. I'm gonna use my card, remove all the air bubbles. I've made these and I'm going to wait until the end because otherwise there's gonna be watercolor all over. So I will wait until afterwards to put them on. And I'll put one somewhere here. So that should be nice. And sometimes I would go back with white paint, you know, to cover up around here, or some tissue paper around to hide the cutout places. And sometimes there's fails. In this case, I'm really not liking this piece of card for now. I'm still gonna keep on working with it because sometimes you never know, honestly. You get, I don't want to put a cockroach here. You get something that you don't like and then it turns out really nice. So I'm just gonna keep on working with it. And I think this might be a good idea to actually cover up this and then maybe stamp on the inside. This is really bothering me, so I'm just gonna add quickly a little bit of this tissue and you will see how it just hides whatever we don't want to see. As you can see, it's already much better. and with the watercolor you won't be able to see a thing. So now we need to get these to dry a little bit before we move on to watercolors. For watercolors, I use this. I don't know if you will find this kind of palette in a shop. I've actually made it myself. It's from clay. As you can see, there's my name there. I really enjoyed making this. It was a bit of a struggle, but it was really fun. And I do have pretty good quality acrylics, but also you see these blobs are really bad quality acrylics, and I've added them because I got them for free with some other thing, and I use these a lot, and that's the main colors I use, to be honest. So you don't need good quality acrylics to do what we're going to do. You just need acrylics, and I know that some people even use sorry, this is watercolor, not acrylics. Watercolor paint pencils. Some people use those. I don't have any, so I don't. But yeah, just use whatever you have. You don't have to buy new stuff for this. We're just going to make do with what we have. I've even done this with acrylics, actually, like watered down acrylics, and you can do this with gouache also. I didn't like the acrylics so much because there was less transparency, and watercolors, I just think it looks a lot better. So I'm going to do it with watercolors here. The idea is really simple. We're gonna water down our watercolors because that's the general idea. And I'm using here, it's like a mossy green, khaki green. Here I have a more mossy green, and I really like to use blue and brown because it gives you some kind of gray. And we're just going to go and tap around like this and just let it dry. Put different colors. Here I want to be a bit more gray, so I'm adding a bit of blue and brown. Like this. And you can go and put any colors you want. I like to use greens and browns because this is a forest theme journal, but you could just as well put blues and purples and grays and just anything you want, literally. And I do like to mix it up a little bit to go with whatever we have at the background, in the background. So maybe add a bit of blue, some pinks, maybe. The idea is really to water down your paint so that it goes into all the interstices of your textures, whether it's texture paste or the tissue paper that we put, really anything. You just have to water down your paint so that it fits into those little holes. That's really important. And the only way to do that is really you just put water. With water, the paint just goes everywhere. And that's it. And then just add layers of colors until you're happy with the result. A few more steps I want to take you through to finish these tags. And the first one is to make some splatters. So I'm just gonna grab a box, and this is my bin box, and some acrylics that I have here. So they're really watered down acrylics. I've used the same ones for my junk journal, and I really loved this green that I bought, which is a bit, it's called olive, I'm gonna call it sage, and then this white. You can use any colors you want. And I'm just gonna grab a really, I don't know how to call it, you know, it's not soft, it's the opposite of soft, brush and a stick. So I'm gonna use this brush, and this is just to do that. And now we're gonna grab our paint, dab it on a little bit, and then just splatter. And you can splatter as much or as little as you want. And with this technique, you can really be a bit, you know where you're going to splatter. And if you put it somewhere you don't want it, you just remove it with a cloth with your finger. Putting a bit of water helps sometimes. And I'm just gonna use a piece of cloth. And that's it, pretty simple. So I'm just gonna do it with the other ones, and then I'm just gonna turn them around. Next, we're going to do a little bit of random stamping. I've got some words here, and it's important you do this after you're finished with the watercolor. Well, especially if you're like me and you have non-waterproof ink. I did that before in my journal, and then it was a whole mess. So I do recommend you do it after the watercolor. And you can do any type of stamping. I quite like this one. I think it's pretty cool with all the words. And the next step is adding a few decorations. So if you feel that it's just not enough, you can just go in and fill in the blanks when you have blanks. And I really like to use die cuts. And then we're just going to glue them. And for this, I'm going to use my white glue and my paintbrush. And for the other side, sometimes, you know, like this butterfly, I had kind of high hopes for it and it just didn't really work. It got kind of lost, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. You're not doing a crisp, perfect junk journal. You're just doing an art journal. So it's fine. Just let it go. It doesn't have to be perfect. And you'll just do better next time. Also about the colors, I just try to match a little bit with the background, and I do like to do, you know, like a darker color and a lighter color to contrast. And you might get some runny watercolors or stamping with the glue, but as I mentioned, it's okay. It's not a perfect junk journal, so that's fine. And if the stamping and the watercolor runs just under what you've done, it's fine. It won't be very visible. And to make sure it's glued, since it's really small items, I just tap with my paintbrush, and if that's not enough, I use my card. But sometimes it moves, so be very gentle. Also, if your watercolor runs and it becomes white underneath, which has happened to me before, especially with the actual journal, I've just gone back with my watercolors afterwards and just did a little bit more watercolor to just hide the white, so that's not a problem either. And so we finished this step. I'm just gonna dry them a little bit and be back with, I think, the last step. For this last step, I'm going to, well, before last, sorry, there's always one more step. I'm going to dry brush with white paint. It can be watercolor, acrylics, gouache, whatever you have at hand. Just make sure that it is quite dry. And I've put a little bit of water on my paintbrush. Just dipped it a little bit, and I'm just putting white on my paintbrush, and I'm just going to dry brush here the leaves to give it a little bit more texture. And I also really like to dry brush the, what is it called? The napkin. It makes it really pop out, and I really like that. And for a really good dry brushing, you need to be really flat with your brush. So I'm just really flattening my brush like this, and if there's just a bit too much, just go around with your finger. And you can do the dry brushing with any color you want. It can be white, but it can be gold. It can be literally just any color you might like. All right, and now that this is finished, I'm thinking of just adding a couple of decorations. Like, well, a little hole for some of the tags. Like this one maybe. I think the other ones are fine. And then you can add as well some cloth, some textile, some ribbons, like over here. I haven't gotten those out. I might do it later. And yeah, just keep going if you want, or just stop here like me. And yeah, so that's it for this little tutorial. I really hope you liked it. Don't forget to give a thumbs up. And I'm just gonna pop those into my journal, and this is the exact same process. As you can see, it's really similar that I did for all the pages. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Bye guys.